So we send the best politicians down to Washington, D.C. to lobby for the fair. And our politicians are so good about boasting for Chicago that Charles Dana, the New York Sun, was cited as saying, "Oh, don't believe a word from that windy city. Full nothing but hot air." And that's how we got the nickname, the Windy City. Not because of the winds, which we do occasionally have, but because of the politicians lobbying for the fair. And they were good. They got us a fair. So in Jackson Park on the south side, 250 temporary structures are erected on a material called stack, basically an early drywall. The only permanent building was the Zion Fine Arts exhibit. Still go there today. Come to the Museum of Science and Industry. It's a great museum. Definitely recommend checking it out. Now, a few items that you know today made their first appearance at the fair: Cracker Jack, shredded wheat, and the world's first Ferris wheel. Ferris wheel was designed by George Washington Ferris. It's around 200 feet tall, can hold over 2,000 people. It was meant to outdo the Eiffel Tower from the Paris Exposition of 1889. Now, Daniel Burnham was the chief planner of the fair and had a great impact over it, and the fair had a great impact over Burnham. It inspired him to complete his plan of Chicago, the 1909 plan. He's the one who envisioned the free and clear lakefront for all the public to enjoy: Navy Pier, Rocker Drive, Congress Expressway, all other elements. He had a great saying: "Make no small plans, and have no magic to stir men's blood." Now, if you are interested in Daniel Burnham and the Columbian Exposition, I always recommend the book The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. Larson combines the story of Daniel Burnham with America's first serial killer, H.H. Holmes. And he weaves these stories around the fair of 1893. It's an excellent book. Definitely recommend checking it out. Another good book on Chicago history is entitled City of the Century by Donald Miller. Miller takes you from exploration of the area in the 1670s all the way to the 1890s. And the book is worth it, especially for the chapters on the fire and the architecture. Now we are heading back into the junction of the river where the main and north and south branch all converge. One river in Chicago, 3 distinct branches. So you have a great view down the main branch. And we're going to be heading down the south branch here shortly. And on your right, start talking about the buildings again. Building in the blue curving glass, it is about a year and a half old, designed by Pickard and Chilton. And this building is actually mimicking and reflecting the building from across the way, the green curving glass. So it's really interesting how these two buildings are playing off each other. I'll talk about the green one when we come back this way. Now you can also see those circular fans underneath this building. Those are in place to make sure train exhaust does not accumulate in that section. It is built above the railroad. That's called buying over air rights. Developers are able to come in, buy the air above the tracks. They're not buying the land, they're buying the air. Sometimes it makes for an engineering dilemma, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Now we're going under Lake Street. It's a double-decker bridge. On the top runs a green and pink line L, short for elevated railroad. Chicago has one of the oldest public transportation systems that utilize electric trains. So they're on 1892. And you really don't have to go in a car to get around in Chicago. Get around just fine with public transit, usually. On our right, another new building, 55 stories, designed by Goshen Partners. You can see how it's cantilevered and continues to climb at 90 degrees. That does one of two things. It makes the building